Hello everyone, welcome back to Soma Talks in 2026, a podcast where body and mind meet. The beginning of a new year often brings one big question. What am I doing this all for? What is my purpose? Am I on the right path? Am I behind? And if you don't have a clear answer to these questions, it can feel very unsettling. It can make you even anxious. Like you missed something that everyone's already got. So today's episode is for you if you feel this pressure to figure it all out, or if you're searching for a deeper meaning. Let me say this clearly from the start. You don't need to have your purpose figured out to be on the right path. Purpose isn't something we magically find. It's something we create over time through actions, values, and connection. And science supports this in ways that are actually very hopeful. I'm very happy to dive deep into this topic today with you because I personally find it very meaningful, existential and practical at the same time, and I think it's a must listen to at the beginning of a new year. The question that we will start with today is why purpose matters. For example, according to research, one study published in JAMA Psychiatry followed over 7,000 adults. It found that people with a strong sense of purpose had lower mortality rates, regardless of age. Another study from psychological science showed that purpose acts as a buffer against stress. People with meaning cope better during difficult periods. But here's the important part. These studies are not saying you need a big purpose. They're saying you need a reason to care, to contribute, or to continue, even in very small ways. To put it simply, purpose doesn't have to be grand. It just has to feel true. The philosopher Albert Camus once wrote that the struggle itself is enough to fill a human heart. In other words, meaning doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes from choosing to engage with life, even when it's uncertain. On the other hand, Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, observed that people could endure immense suffering if they felt their lives still had meaning, even of a very fragile and finished one. So purpose doesn't have to be grand, as I'm saying. It has just to feel true enough to give you a reason to show up. Purpose at its core is not about achievement, it's about relationship with life, values, what feels worth responding to. And importantly, purpose can change. What gave your life meaning at 20 may not fit at 35. And that doesn't mean you failed, it means you grew. Research by Dr. William Damon at Stanford shows that purpose develops gradually and is often constructed through experience, not discovered all at once. Which brings us to an important truth. Most people don't find purpose first, they act first, and purpose follows. Actually, this might be the most freeing part of today's episode. Purpose doesn't arrive fully formed, it grows. It grows from what you care about, what you respond to emotionally, and where you choose to invest your energy. Studies on meaning making show that engagement precedes clarity. We understand what matters to us by doing, not by overthinking. Purpose can come from caring for others, creating something, learning, supporting some cause, healing, parenting, building stability, or even surviving and rebuilding. And sometimes purpose looks like, right now, my purpose is to take care of myself. That counts too. Psychologist Viktor Frankl, that I already mentioned today, who studied meaning extensively, wrote that meaning is not something we ask from life. It's something life asks from us, moment by moment. So purpose isn't static, it's responsive. And what if you don't feel purpose yet? This is normal. If you're listening and thinking, I don't feel a clear sense of purpose right now, I want you to hear this. You are not broken, you are not behind, you are not failing at life. Research on adult development shows that periods of uncertainty often precede major growth. Transitions, burnout, grief, or big changes can temporarily disconnect us from meaning, and that's okay. Purpose often returns after rest, regulation, healing, and reconnection, not during pressure. So instead of asking, what is my purpose? Why I don't feel it yet? Try asking, what feels meaningful to do today? Small meaning builds big meaning. Of course, there is a bunch of practical ways to grow purpose. Here are evidence-backed ways that cultivate it in your life. Firstly, follow what gives you energy. Research shows that activities aligned with your values increase motivation and well-being. But instead of asking, what should I do with my life? Try asking, what energizes me? What feels satisfying, even when it's hard? In yogic philosophy, this relates to dharma. Not as a job or role, but as your natural way of engaging with life. Dharma isn't something you force, it's something you notice. Practice mindfulness, because purpose grows in presence. Mindfulness research shows that being present increases clarity, emotional regulation, and self-awareness, all foundations for purpose. In Buddhist teachings, meaning isn't found by chasing the future, but by fully inhabiting the present moment. When you slow down enough to notice your thoughts, emotions, and reactions, you start to see what matters to you, what drains you, and what feels the most aligned. So purpose becomes clearer when the mind is quieter. Thirdly, contribute in small human ways. Purpose is strongly linked to contribution. Eastern philosophies often emphasize service without attachment to outcome. Doing what is needed, not for recognition, but because it's right in that moment. Even small acts like listening, helping, or just showing up increase meaning and life satisfaction. You don't need to change the world, you just need to participate in it. Fourth, connect to something beyond the self. Studies show that purpose grows when we feel part of something larger, something bigger. Community, relationships, nature, creativity, and shared values. In many Eastern traditions, suffering comes from feeling separate. Purpose grows when we remember that we are all connected, not alone, not isolated in our experience. Fifth, allow purpose to be seasonal. You don't need one purpose for your whole life. Purpose changes because you change. Eastern philosophy sees life as cyclical, seasons of growth, of rest, of rebuilding. You can have a purpose just for this year. You can have a purpose for this week, or maybe for this stage of your life. Stillness can be purposeful too. Sixth, act before clarity. Action creates feedback. Feedback creates insight, and insight creates direction. In the Bhagavad Gita, there is a central teaching. Act without attachment to the result. You don't need certainty to begin, you need willingness. Purpose often reveals itself after you start moving, not before. Now let me come back for a moment to Bhagavad Gita that I just mentioned. It is an ancient Indian philosophical text that's part of the yogic tradition. It's written as conversation between a warrior and his guide, Krishna, taking place right in the middle of a moment of deep uncertainty and inner conflict. Arjuna, the warrior, is overwhelmed, frozen by doubt, questioning his role, his responsibility, and the meaning of his actions. And what makes the Gita so timeless is that it doesn't begin with clarity, it begins with confusion. Rather than giving a rigid plan to the warrior, the Gita offers a simple but powerful idea. Focus on your actions, not on controlling the outcome. One of its central teachings is do what feels aligned with your values, your integrity, and your responsibility, and release attachment to results. In modern terms, the Gita teaches that purpose isn't something you wait to feel certain about. It's something you practice through intentional action, even when you don't have all the answers. That's why it still resonates today, not as a religious instruction, but as guidance for living, choosing, and moving forward with steadiness in uncertain times. Next question is, why humans thrive with purpose and why letting go of expectations helps it emerge. There's a reason purpose matters so deeply to us as humans. From an evolutionary and psychological perspective, humans are meaning-making beings. We don't just survive, we interpret. We look for patterns, reasons, directions. Research shows that having a sense of purpose gives the brain a framework. It helps us regulate stress, make decisions, and stay motivated during uncertainty. When life feels meaningful, challenges feel more survivable. But here's the paradox: purpose doesn't grow well under pressure. When we expect ourselves to have a purpose, like a clear mission, a perfect plan, a socially approved decision, we often create anxiety instead of clarity. Expectations tighten the body. Pressure narrows perception, and genuine purpose needs a lot of space. Many psychologists note that intrinsic motivation, so doing something because it feels meaningful, is far more powerful than extrinsic motivation, which comes from comparisons or approval. Purpose that comes from expectation sounds like, I should know by now, I need something impressive. But purpose that comes from the heart sounds different. This feels right. I care about this. This really drives me. I want to keep going. There is a reason it's often said we find the most important things when we stop looking so hard for them. Purpose tends to emerge when we loosen up our grip, when we allow curiosity, play, and freedom into our lives. Free spirits, the ones who explore, experiment, change directions, and listen inwards, often discover meaning not by chasing it, but by living. The philosopher Kierkegaard once wrote, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." Purpose is like that. It makes sense in hindsight, but it's built in motion. Purpose isn't something you're supposed to have. It's something you want to have. Something that feels alive and something that grows with you. And most importantly, purpose isn't any kind of destination. It's rather a relationship, one that you build over a lifetime, that you feel every day. Now it's a good moment to integrate everything what we said into a New Year reframe. As this New Year 2026 begins, here's a softer way to approach purpose. Instead of, what should my purpose be? Try, what kind of person do I want to be this year? Instead of asking, what's my big mission? Try asking, what feels meaningful enough to keep going? Purpose doesn't need pressure, it needs patience. And if you don't have it yet, it will come through living, through choosing, through staying open, and through experiencing. Before we finish, please remember that you don't need to have everything figured out to begin. Purpose isn't something you chase, it's something that meets you as you move. Don't try to push it, don't try to expect from yourself that you should already have it. And don't expect that life mission will be something grand, huge. It can be something simple. Start with something that makes your life more meaningful on a daily basis. Something that makes you feel better. Thank you for being here, and thank you for starting this year with curiosity instead of pressure. Until next time. Soma Talks, Agata Teres.